All right, so it looks like most folks are back in the room. So as we go into the next portion of the summit today, I think this morning's topics really help to set the stage with what some of our speakers are going to be talking about this afternoon. So we are going to have the opportunity to hear from Catherine Polidel from Misericordia University, who's the director of the Women's with Children program there, and really the program that put this vision on the map for Secretary Rivera and Secretary Miller, as well as Jade Levi, who is a graduate of the program. And then we also, after Misericordia, we have Kathy Dykstra from Family Scholar House in Louisville, who also has done a model that really is around the multi-generational supports for single parents and their family. And I think we'll do a good job at touching on some of the questions you all had about what are the parameters around this. Again, we don't have anything set in stone at this point around any sort of eligibility or criteria. This is really the beginning steps to get those conversations going. So we will have time after that for you all to ask some questions. We'll also be having Maria Wilson sit up with questions for Kathy, and Maria is going to be speaking tomorrow to close out the summit. But she also is a graduate of the Family Scholar House program. So we will both have the directors and participants up here for questions. So all right, I will now turn it over to Catherine to get started.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me in the back? Okay. I talk fast and I'm kind of loud, so hopefully we're going to be all right today. Thank you so much for having us. It's just such a pleasure to be in a room with so many people that I know are doing just tremendous work across the state, and certainly are advocates for so many clients that need our support. I am Catherine Polidel. I'm the director of the Ruth Matthews-Berger Women with Children program at Misericordia University, along with my other team member here, Sandy Johnson, who is our coordinator. We're just really proud to be present with all of you today, and hopefully to share some information on our program that might lead to more conversations to help all sorts of populations in need. Today our focus is on single mothers in terms of our program, but certainly, as we've mentioned here already, grandparents, single fathers. I believe that what we're doing and the important work that we're doing can be replicated. And so I just want to mention that as we start. So some reality bells that I'm going to ring first that I think are important for all of us to consider as we go forward. When we look at the demographics from the U.S. Census from 2018, there are a couple of things that I think we need to look at in terms of trends and where we're going. So if you look at some of the facts here, 11.3 million families were headed by single parents in 2018. 81% are single mother households. 16.4 million children are being raised by single mothers in the United States. 40% of that population are in the poverty level. The poverty rate for single mothers in 2017 was 34%, and 30% of single mothers are food insecure. 12.8% use food pantries. 59% are on SNAP, and a third spend over 50% of their income on housing alone, which would be classified as severe housing burden. All right. Single mother families also make up 39% or 4.1 million of low-income families in the United States. So those are just some stats right off the board that I think we need to just sort of bear in mind as we start to talk about this and why we started to do this program at Misericordia. So the first thing we'll take a look at is a little bit of our history and what we were sort of looking and hoping to do. So this is my boss. I'm going to start moving around. This is my boss, Sister Jean Mazzaro. So my boss is a nun. So we behave in our offices. But she is truly an innovator and an inspiration. And what she noticed is back in the year 2000, we had a number of single mother households, single mother families that were approaching the university, wanting to go to school. And the realities were, it just became impossible. It was not a feasible option. And basically asking what was the issue was the competing demands of everything we just talked about, particularly the burden of rent. And so the idea was, let's create a program where we could provide housing that alleviates the rent burden, where we're able to have mothers come with their children and accomplish that 4-year degree. And so that idea was sparked by Sister Jean and a social worker at the school. They started with one house that supported 6 families in 2000, and the good news is we've evolved since then. So where we are now in 2019 is we have 3 houses on our lower campus, and we serve 16 single mother families every year. So that's where our growth trajectory is so far. So far, so good. Okay? So if we dial ourselves in a little bit further and we look at Luzerne County in northeastern Pennsylvania, there are a number of things we should also, again, pay attention to. And for everybody in this room, you certainly want to pay attention to what's going on in your respective counties, too. The poverty rate for our county is 14.8%, and the largest demographic in poverty are white women between the ages of 25 to 35 years of age. 41% of all households in the county are single-parent families. Of that percentage, 77% are single-mother households, which represent a larger segment of households that are living in the poverty level right now in our county. And so since 2000, and this is another interesting trend, there is a 14% point increase in single-parent families, and that number jumped. So from 10,203 in 2000, there are now 14,230 in 2018. And among this, and again, another kind of tough reality is that 11,535 children under the age of 18 live in poverty right now in Luzerne County. So the question becomes, what can we do about all of this? So a 2-generation model, and we talk about this in great detail, and with the Aspen Institute, I appreciate the thoroughness of this because it's so extremely important that we can start to address a family system holistically. And how do we do that? So we're looking at both the mother and the child at the same time. And how are we going to do that? We're going to create something that's a little bit more innovative, frankly, in higher education. I don't know how many higher ed institutes are here, but I started at a school and institution where there wasn't service for families. So going to Misericordia was pretty remarkable to see in a higher education setting, a home environment that's established for single parents that's helping them through their 4-year degree, and they're bringing their children along the way. And we'll talk a little bit about how that impacts the child as we go too. Social determinants of health are definitely core drivers to the programming initiatives that we develop and that we do, and we're constantly innovating. We're constantly coming up with more. I think we all know that poverty creates a lot of gaps, a lot of barriers, and a lot of issues for our families, and so we want to be pretty methodical in paying attention to what those are on an ongoing basis, and then continually looking at solutions. We also couple this with what we call a biopsychosocial model framework, which shapes how we are going to address the needs of each one of our members, mother and child or children, okay? And that needs assessment coupled with the social determinants, again, becomes sort of that core driver to how we're going to develop the program. And then essential to this, and I think we're starting to see this, especially in higher education, as an upsurge in demand for services, is integrated case management. So having a case manager, to me, is absolutely essential. And when you have case management going on all the time, you start to see that you can really start to connect all of the services that a whole family is going to need. And lucky for us, oftentimes the timeline and trajectory for this is up to 4 years. So it's a beautiful thing. I just mentioned this is another student who graduated from our program, Asia Thompson and her 2 children. And I bring this up because I think it's highly relevant. Asia is a single mom who came from New Jersey, who was homeless, living in her car with 2 children. She fled a domestic violence situation. She knew she had to get out. She had a high school education, but she wanted more. She tried to go to community college. Her circumstances prohibited her from continuing in that direction. She applied to Misericordia and was accepted. She graduated in 2017 among a cohort of 5 families and her 2 children along with her. And she is currently now a second-year law school student at New York Law in her honors and accelerated program. So she's done okay. Just wanted to mention her. Okay. So what does a student in a sense look like? And so I want to give you a little bit of a profile to give you a sense of what we're facing, what they're facing, and then how are we going to help them. So all of our families are at the poverty level or on the brink. And people say, well, what's the brink? Really, the brink is that one catastrophe away from falling into the poverty line. And it could be something as basic as, oh, the car just went, and I don't have a way to replace it, and I don't know how I'm going to get to work anymore or how I'm going to get to school anymore. So we're paying attention to that as a group and as a cohort. The other thing is, and this is a little bit of higher ed lingo, but again, for everybody, zero EFC, which means they're coming into school and there's absolutely no family contribution for them to attend college. When they come in, they're on their own and they stand alone in that regard. First generation college students, all of them, across the board. Common scenarios that we face and they face include things like homelessness, homeless shelters, fleeing domestic violence circumstances. Some of our women are widowed, some of our women are divorced. Some of them have been living in public housing. Oftentimes they're working poor. Maybe they have 2, maybe even 3 jobs. They're working around the clock. Some of our women have been raised in foster care. They definitely come across the board food insecure, and most often than not, they're the sole provider for their child or their children with very little to no financial support. So when I say that we go and we recruit students out of homeless shelters, we quite literally do that. Common goal is to provide a better life for their children. If you ask any of our moms, that's the first thing they'll say. It's really not about them. So education and profession is the goal. And the other thing too is, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, this sort of unique intersection of how you're going to deal with higher education, getting that degree, and then how are you going to still support your family and how are you going to afford to live? And that's where subsidies really come into play, where you start to view them as a partnership. Subsidies as partners to this process, and how are we going to do that? All of our women are on subsidies because they have to be. They don't want to be. This is a hand-up program, not the hand-out program. And so we're moving away from sort of that mentality of, and frankly, a very stigmatizing mentality of, oh, this is just a person who may be looking for just, a free ride or some help and that's it, it's a subsidy. These are essential in order to make a lot of these programs work, and I think it's important that we highlight that. Along with that, all of our women, and there's a lot of requirements to our program, so we're taking students who are very serious and very committed, but they do have to be at least 12 credits or more a semester, which means their full-time status as a student. They have to make pace in their academic year so that they maintain any type of federal aid that they might receive, and then they also have to maintain good standing with the university in our program. Also, talking about subsidies and requirements, all of our families have to work, so our moms do work 20 hours biweekly or 10 hours a week in order to maintain the subsidy. Our program also works with the university to get federal work-study priority placement for all of our women. So across the board, they maintain that subsidy and that requirement. We just basically assume you could be audited any time, you need to be compliant. Also, we have a community living contract. It's rather involved. We're rather strict. I always joke to the women when we're recruiting that one day you're going to look out the window and I might be there. And then they laugh and then it actually happens and yeah, we really do that. So we'll keep an eye on the families. We keep that support going throughout the year, but also we want to make sure that there's sort of the mentality of everyone's a stakeholder. Everyone needs to be invested and everyone's going to do work. Primary physical custody of the child or children is absolutely essential in order to be in our program. And by the way, we accept moms with up to 3 children. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Also, you must complete a criminal background check and a Pennsylvania child abuse clearance. Our program will fund that for any person that we're looking at as a candidate, but it is a requirement to be in our program. And then something that's, I think, rather big, and when we're talking about poverty level, we're talking about something that could be a big barrier, is transportation. All of our families do require a car and a driver's license. However, I will tell you this, if we have a candidate who really wants to be with us, and I don't know how, and knock on wood, we always figure it out. We always find a way. I also know every used car dealer within a 50-mile radius of our program. We also know how to repair car tires, and yeah, we always say if we're gonna get a third person on our staff, it's gonna be a social worker who's also a mechanic. So if anyone's interested. Also, too, I think it's important to highlight this, and this is, again, becomes part of the stakeholder component, which is all of our women are responsible for their tuition. And what that will mean is that although they're going to be wrapped through with a financial aid package through our university, we're also going to be doing everything we possibly can to build scholarship dollars for them so that we can keep that student debt load down as low as possible. So luckily for them, under a 4-year trajectory, they still fall well below the state and national averages for student debt load. So I just thought I'd mention that as well. So areas of focus. I feel very strongly, I need to emphasize this to you, that for us, we have 3 homes on our lower campus. Home is very important because we believe it really helps to establish that community connection. Our famous line is, in our program, you can't hide. We will find you, and we do. The reality is a lot of our, as I think, again, the speaker from Aspen talked about this, a lot of our families are living in isolation. When you're in poverty, you're oftentimes in panic, and oftentimes that toxic stress that wears on a family system needs to be something that we're gonna address and that we're gonna mitigate as we go forward with the program. And so that's why we feel strongly. Certainly it does mean more work for all of us, but it also means that there's a community and a level of support that many of our families have never experienced before. Also, the case management piece, we support all of that. So we work very nicely with our services in Luzerne County. We'll work with caseworkers, we case manage, we help our families connect. If we have families that are coming from across the state or across the country, we're gonna make sure that they're getting those subsidies moved over for them while they're with us, and then they maintain them. As I mentioned too, federal work-study priority placement is something that we also make sure we do. We also have food pantries in every one of our homes. So from the door, if somebody has needs, we're going to make sure that they're met. We will also, and we do have a nutritionist registered dietitian that works collaboratively with our program that helps our families. So for example, food insecurity issues and you don't know how to prepare healthy meals, we're going to help you learn how to do that. You need shared grocery shopping so that you can pick healthy choices on the SNAP card, we're going to help you do that. So just to give you some examples. Okay. Also, on-site counseling, self-care, we do groups, parenting workshops, and resources all the time. By the way, we're a 365-day, 24/7 operation. So a lot of our families, their biggest concern when they come to us is, where am I going to go in the summer? We have to tell them that they don't have to worry about that. We're their permanent address. So they stay with us for up to 4 years, and we continue to do these types of works all the way through. In addition to that, we do a lot of other support systems like consignment shops we have in our houses. We provide furniture and household supplies that are needed, and we're extremely safe. So card access only. Our entries are all carded, and then you also have cameras, and we also have campus security 24/7. Just a couple other highlights quickly. We have emergency funding that we use all the time. If you come, and often this happens, we have a mom that shows up in a car with 2 garbage bags and a child. We're going to help you figure out all of those things that you're going to need to do to start yourself off, whether it's education supplies, and we'll talk about that in a moment. We do offer free books for up to 4 years for our program, free housing for up to 4 years. So we're pulling away some of those immediate costs that a student might panic about. Also, we do have everything Wi-Fi connected. We have a computer loaning program. We have pet therapy that comes in for our homes. And for the children, just to give you a couple highlights, children's gardens, children's libraries, children's support. And then all the other amenities that come with housing. Another one of our moms and children, a young woman came from a homeless shelter in New Jersey and is going into her junior year. So student mother programming, a couple of things to highlight here. On-campus counseling, tutoring, student success, accommodations. If you need it, we're going to get it, and we're going to connect you to it. It's very important that you look at all of the amenities of a university and mind them and use them, because it will help. Anything that you can do on site to help alleviate those concerns going forward, you want to certainly focus on too, but we do provide everything from travel abroad experiences for some of our families. If they can do it, they will. The on-site counseling and support, that's 24/7. Also, we will do things like master classes, conferences, and then we really focus in on task hard on the career readiness component of education. So once our moms are getting into that final year, that's where we really start to focus. How do we do that too? We also provide mentorship. We have a lot of postgraduate transition and planning that we do throughout the entire year. And then certainly nobody leaves until there's a plan, by the way. So everything from housing to childcare to profession will all be addressed before they graduate. And then again, we do a lot of, through our emergency funding, a lot of essentials that we provide. And this also includes on-campus meal plans. Children eat for free throughout the year. Mothers get a lunch pass as well, so they eat for free during the year as well. We do budgeting and business support, and then we also have helped now with the Pell Bridge program, where we're actually helping families who may have been pursuing school for quite some time who are running low on Pell. We'll help do some stopgap measuring there so that to ensure that they have funding in order to graduate. More of our kiddos. We love our kids. Children's programming, we try it to be as comprehensive as possible, and here's the reality. The children are our core driver. If we can pay attention to their needs from the door, we see tremendous growth. And that goes on and on and on post-graduation of the mom. So all sorts of things. We coordinate and have access to 4-star childcare, and then we also have the Dallas Area School District, which is a blue ribbon school district in our area. It's literally within a mile of our program. We will evaluate the needs of each child, and we make sure that they're matched with everything that they might need, including intervention services. We have a Kids on Campus program that comes in once a week where we have student volunteers who are teachers that work with our children. We do shared reading. We do literacy programming. They have access to free speech, language, and pathology programming throughout the year from our university. We also do family enrichment. So every holiday, birthday, all of it matters. I've made swimming a requirement, much to the dismay of some of our moms, but it's important because it's a life skill and it's something that we can offer for free at our campus so every child learns to swim before mom graduates. We also fund 1 extracurricular a year per child per interest. So whatever they would like, gymnastics, karate, whatever they'd like, we'll do. Along with that too, as I mentioned, they eat for free on campus during the year. During the summer, we do as much as we can summer enrichment, camps, access to programming, and then we also have, everything's kid-friendly in our houses. So we have playgrounds, we have open free spaces for kids to play, and we also do all sorts of events outdoors for them throughout the year. So just to really encourage that. Support for the family system includes a bunch of other things that we think we need to do too. And by the way, most of this was developed as we ran into the problem. So we're sort of solution oriented. So poverty pops up an issue and then we knock it back down. So AAA coverage goes on every car that comes to our program, and it's a basic package so we can get that done. And then you'll see all the other amenities that we offer too. So everything from dental coverage to mental health treatment to essentials with emergency food and gas cards, things like that. So, and then just to keep it, going, again, as we mentioned, all the coordination that we can with the schools, the local area, as well as the community at the university. And then the career readiness and the work readiness that we talked about, just to touch on that quickly, just making sure that our women are dressed and ready to go and are prepared for those first interviews and then land those jobs. And we can just jump to outcomes. So when we look at our program outcomes, and we'll have these slides available if you want to see more details, but for time, 100% professional placement upon graduation for all of our women. We have 30 graduates now. Beyond that, 90% student retention rate for all of our program. 80% of our cohort has gone on to a master's degree or more. Some have gone on even to PhDs, and now we have students in law school too. Within 2 years, our families no longer access subsidies, not because of any other reason except that they're making too much money and they're successful, and that's their end goal and ours too. Also, our women are now referrals. They're helping other women, and they're also helping in their communities. And then ultimately, they continue to thrive, and when you see our children, if you're looking at all of them, the expectation is that they go to college, and they certainly do at this point. So what you see is that we're breaking that line of intergenerational poverty. We're doing it with one program, and we're doing it within 4 years. So I know that was really swift and really quick, but we wanted to give you a sense of our program, and I wanted to introduce now, it's certainly my pleasure, one of our graduates from 2017, Women with Children graduate, Jade Levi, to give you a student perspective. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jade Levi, and I am a 2017 graduate of Misericordia University and the Women with Children program. And I am honored to be here today to share my experience with all of you. I started the program my senior year when my daughter Avery turned 2. At the time, I was living with my foster family, struggling to balance being a full-time mother, a full-time student, and working part-time. I grew up in foster care and lived with the same family since 2002. Although they have helped me tremendously, it did eventually get to a point where it was very difficult to live with my foster family and parent my daughter the way that I wanted to raise her. Being accepted into this program was a stepping stone into my independence and allowed me to continue my education at Misericordia University and raise my daughter on my own terms. There are many obstacles and worries you face when trying to get your education as a single mother. One of the biggest barriers for myself was financial independence. I could not afford to live on my own, and this program graciously afforded me the opportunity. As a student, the program allowed me to focus on my studies, which led me to successfully graduate with my bachelor's degree. My goal has always been, and still is, to one day attend law school and become an attorney. As a mother, the program supported me by minimizing many of the struggles single mothers face. My daughter was able to learn and grow by living in a safe environment, which allowed me to effectively raise her. She was enrolled in an amazing learning center and made many new friends. The program afforded me the motivation to get out of my comfort zone, the support to mature, and the confidence to make decisions for myself and my daughter. I had an overwhelming amount of support from Catherine, Sandy, Sister Jean, and all of my roommates who are now my best friends. It also opened up many opportunities and allowed me to make many new connections. The critical element for programs such as this to succeed is the funding. By supporting this program, you help mothers obtain their education and afford them and their family the opportunity to live a life out of poverty. The mothers who are in this program are motivated and appreciative of the resources and grateful for a chance to give back to the community. It feels rewarding to know that not only did I accomplish a goal of mine, but I am now able to provide a better life for myself and my daughter. It gives me a sense of pride to know that I came full circle. I utilized the assistance and resources of the program until I was able to support myself. Now, I am privileged to support and advocate for other single mothers and their families through this amazing program. After graduation, I accepted a position as a paralegal at the Wright Center for Graduate Medical Education. I have been working with the Wright Center for almost 2 years and was recently promoted to HIPAA Compliance Officer, Insurance Coordinator. I am thankful the Wright Center gave me the opportunity to showcase my skill set that I developed through the Women with Children program. One of the core values of the Wright Center is being privileged to serve. So today, I stand before you, both privileged to serve as an employee of the Wright Center and also as a graduate of the Women with Children program. Serving people in need is at the heart of the mission of the Women with Children program. And I feel that it is no coincidence that I ended up working at the Wright Center, who share a similar mission. I hope that my story helps you to see the importance of this program and the worthy investment which truly makes a difference in the lives of single mothers and the next generations. This program has definitely lived up to its mission and has shaped me into a Moliere Fortis. Thank you.
Thank you, Jade, and thank you, Catherine, for your presentation and sharing your story. So up next, we're going to move right along because we have a packed agenda today, is Kathy Dykstra from Family Scholar House.
Good afternoon, everyone. Y'all a little sleepy. It is a delight to be here to learn with you and from you about a subject that we all care very, very much about. You can just feel the energy in the room for supporting parents who are students. is always our privilege to share about our Family Scholar House model, but I offer the information I'm going to share as the way we have found to support single-parent college students in our community and some other populations. It is not the only way, and hopefully you'll take from something that I share a way that you can add to your program or enhance your program or questions that you might have later. One thing that's really fun to point out is that you do not have to be founded by nuns to have a good program, but it doesn't hurt. We were founded by representatives of 6 orders of nuns that came together at a time when they recognized that their numbers were dwindling and they were spending more of their time and money and energy caring for their elderly members, that if they wanted to do something really powerful and meaningful in our community, they need to do it collaboratively. So in 1995, they birthed a small project that had a different name and kept it intentionally very small. They had a different paradigm than our current board has. They saw education as a privilege. And I don't want to argue that on some level it's not. But when you see it as a privilege, it may feel like you need to be special to go. Our board currently sees education, post-secondary education, as a responsibility. You have a responsibility to get the level of education necessary to be self-sufficient and contribute to your community. When you change something from a privilege to a responsibility, you grow really, really quickly. So, our mission is to end the cycle of poverty and transform our community by empowering families and youth to succeed in education and achieve lifelong self-sufficiency. That's a big mission. And often when I present, I'm asked, well, but what's the one thing? What's the one thing your participants need? And I find that so incredibly frustrating, and I imagine some of you do too, because there's not one thing. These are like dominoes that are all stacked up against each other, and there is no one solution. It's complicated. And the best way we found to address it was to make some significant commitments to how we would do it comprehensively. There we go. Commitment to families. We honor the family unit. All of our families are single-parent families, but we wanted to make sure that mom and her kids or dad and his kids were in an environment where they were the family. So these are all individual apartments that we provide. And comprehensive programming, everything from parenting to intergenerational activities to ways that parents and children and seniors in the community can learn and participate together. Financial education as young as 2 years old. Yep, we teach little bitty kids about money in a program called Children for Change because we know the world runs on money, and if we can start early understanding it, we know we'll have better control over it. Commitment to educational attainment. In Louisville, our students attend 13 different colleges and universities, and we have another 12 apprenticeship programs. We do not choose their school. They choose any accredited school, any accredited program that they would like to participate in, and we support them in that. And when we say post-secondary education or even college, we're talking about that full continuum, everything from a certificate program to an apprenticeship, to a 2-year degree, to a 4-year degree, and although many of our folks go on to get graduate degrees, they do that generally after exiting our program. Commitment to the next generation. Now, you probably can't see it, but those little ball caps say, "My mom is a grad." When we celebrate our graduates each year, we celebrate their children as well, because we know if mom or dad did it, those kids helped. And we want them to live vicariously into the success that comes with education and feel that they are very much part of a college-going culture. In addition to that, a toddler book club, which is less about reading and more about bonding with your parent over a story in a way that brings that story to life. Because if you want to read, you will learn to read. So it really puts the emphasis on the story. Children for Change, as I mentioned, Project Role Model, Healthy Me. Passports for Success is a global literacy program because most of our families have never left our area. But we want them to understand that the world is growing increasingly flat and that they need to understand other cultures and other countries. Camp Chi Beta is one of the college growing programs as well. And a commitment to our community partners. We really could not do it without our community partners. I'm going to talk a little bit later in the breakout session about volunteers and how we've leveraged them. But we've used our volunteers and they have used us. It's a really good symbiotic relationship. For instance, GE provides a washer and dryer for every apartment. Every single apartment has its own washer and dryer. That also creates a great deal of brand loyalty amongst our participants, and GE is not missing out on that. But we get service hours from the companies in our area. They participate in our speed mentoring program, which is like speed dating, only mentoring. And they ultimately are the ones who hire our graduates. So the more familiarity they have with our participants, with our graduates, and with our program, the better that relationship is going to be. Okay, the best way to understand our program is to hear about it from our graduates. So, short video that will give you some insight into their experience.
Absolutely nothing that you believe in and want to do is impossible.
No matter what obstacles came in my way, like I still, saw the end goal and I pursued that.
Whoa, look at this. Do you want to play with something? Nothing comes easy in life, and as long as you put the work in, I guarantee that she can do whatever she wants for herself and her kids. So it's not impossible.
Hey, Mommy, I have this one at home.
Do you? There's definitely times that, I thought I wasn't gonna make it through, where I was down on myself, and I knew that I just needed that little bit of encouragement that Family Scholar House gave to me to push through those hard times and to finally get there, because it will pay off.
My name is Olivia Pierce.
My name is Christina Bryant.
Are you find my room is?
Do you know where your room is?
Yes.
I don't know, maybe we can find it. There's nothing that can amount to the things that you all have done for me, honestly.
You got a rainbow! Without Family Scholar House, I honestly don't know if I would be here and be able to have so much, passion behind what I'm saying and have so much enthusiasm about where I'm at now, and loving my career if it wasn't for the Family Scholar House.
I don't know what kind of environment we would be in right now if it weren't for the Scholar House.
There.
Good job. What about that? You want to do that one next?
Yes.
Okay, gotta turn it up. Being in this program together with my daughter has brought us closer. Want to put this one right there?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. So I think that the program is not only teaching me how to be a better mother.
So I take my hat off.
Yeah, you can take your hat off. But I'm learning from her as well every day.
Where's the match to that one? So Lacey is now 5 years old and she is in kindergarten. You got it! Good job. She loves to draw and color. What color do you want to use next? Draw my name and dance and swim. What color is that? She's just living the dream. I feel like Scholar House gave me the privilege to start her life off that way in that community.
So the Family Scholar House is definitely another family that I go to for support. They put everybody in a common ground, so you know that you're not in this boat alone, that other people are going through rough patches too while they're trying to achieve their goals. Let's see, this one might go right here. The Family Scholar House, they just offer you that extra boost that you may need. They kind of help you self-reflect on the things that you may not see in yourself and help you achieve your goals in the long run.
I guess I would say to the donors, I wish they could just see all the lives they've touched. George still likes Windy Days. They don't impact just the girls that live there, but they impact a whole community of women that Family Scholar House helps outside of the actual people that are housed there. The end. By me saying thank you, that shows them somewhat of all the stuff that they've provided for not only my family, but so many other families.
I just want to thank them for all putting us on a common ground and knowing that there's someone out there that is rooting for us.
It's been an amazing journey.
As a mother, as a Family Scholar House participant, being a Black woman, I'm so proud of that. So.
I can be a real life witness that it does work and that you will get there, and no matter what the world tells you, like, you're going to overcome those obstacles, and there's many resources through the Scholar House to help you get there.
Those are 2 of the 60 graduates in the class of 2019. And we are very, very proud of them, but they are not exceptional. They are representative of their peers. So who are our Family Scholar House participants? They are single-parent college students. The majority are female. I have a small number of single fathers. We also have a small program where we serve unaccompanied foster care alumni. So they don't have to have aged out, but they have to have been in foster care after their 13th birthday. They do not have children living with them. This is a pre-parent program, a way to help them get the education that they need before they have children so that they're better able to provide for themselves and their children. All of our families are coming from poverty. Most are coming from either unstable housing or most often homelessness. 95% have experienced domestic violence. More than 80% of my children have seen someone abuse their mom. That's a lot to overcome, so we do a lot of work around that as well. We do ACEs for our Adverse Childhood Experiences surveys for our adults. We do the children's version of ACEs for our children. We do ages and stages questionnaires. We do a psychosocial that generally lasts about 3 hours. Comprehensive. And what I think we've been really good at, and I know the Misericordia University, we have this in common, and I'm sure many of you do as well, is that we're good listeners. We don't have the solution until we know what the problem is, and then we address the problem by finding the solution. All of our participants are committed to completing their education. They must be full-time college students in any of those programs, including an apprenticeship, because they get college credit as well. They don't have to work. 91% do, but they're not required to work. They meet with their academic coach on our staff twice a month. They meet with their family advocate on our staff twice a month, come to peer support once a month, volunteer in the community a minimum of 4 hours a month, and it's an intensive program. And it's not for everyone, but for those people that are drawn to it, it's very, very effective. So we have 3 stages. There's a pre-residential program before you live with us. There's residential when you live with us, and there's post-program support. Often the post-program support is assisting our children as they prepare for college. So once you're part of this family, you're never not part of this family. It's very comprehensive. All of our housing is Section 8 housing. So none of our participants are paying more than 30% of their earned income for their rent. And my math is good enough to know that 30% of 0 is 0. So many are paying nothing or $12 a month for their apartments. So why housing? In 2005, when I joined the organization, they were serving 4 people. They also had 4 staff members, and I don't know how many of you have worked anywhere with a 1-to-1 ratio, but it is not sustainable and definitely not scalable. So some things needed to change. Our growth was limited by a lot of things, but one of those was that the sisters who had founded us were raising money from everybody they'd ever taught to get rent money, to pay rent to other people to house the families that they were serving. And I knew just enough about low-income housing tax credits to be dangerous. I knew just enough to know that we could switch that model around and actually have money coming in to house our families, provide them with the housing, have money coming in that would ultimately create a revenue stream to support our programs. So we built. The first campus opened in 2008. That's Louisville Scholar House, apartments for 56 families. The Child Development Center is the building that looks like a children's shape sorter. a fun place where kids want to be. Through a collaborative arrangement with the University of Louisville, they manage the program. So we own the building, they manage the program, and it serves everyone's children, 166 children that are our children and children from students, faculty, and staff at the University of Louisville, creating a very diverse environment. We also have our Academic Services Center, which is at the other end of the campus. And one thing I'll point out here, it's on all the campuses. You can't see it, but you can imagine it. All of the doors are different colors. There's no repeat of color of door in any floor, in any building. And our first architect told me it was going to be hokey. And I said, well, I'm counting on you not to let it be hokey, but it has absolutely nothing to do with how it looks. It has everything to do with children having been homeless, and if you're 3 years old and every door is the same color, where do you live? So we gave them a way to identify where they lived and have a sense of belonging around their own home. And they'll tell you, Miss Kathy, I'm the red door on the second floor. I live in the purple door at the end. That's how they have developed a place, the sense of place. Our second campus opened in January of 2011, Downtown Scholar House, first historic preservation project. This one was complicated. Part of it was a by-the-hour hotel. We managed to make something good come out of that. 54 families live there, and there's an academic services center. All of those have computer labs, children's libraries, indoor play space, and playgrounds. The third campus opened later that year. That's Stoddard Johnston Scholar House. It's an old school built in 1915. It had been out of service for 20 years. We were able to renovate it with historic preservation, add 2 buildings, and make it home to 57 families and all the academic services that are needed as well. It also has a sensory and expressive therapies room because we had a growing number of children who were on the spectrum or had special needs, and their therapists were coming to their school and taking them out of class in order to work with them. And that's fine, I guess, but if there's a better way to do it, let's do it that way. We made it so that they could stay in class and their therapist would come to their home environment at the end of the school day and work with them in the sensory and expressive therapies room. Parkland Scholar House, the 4th campus, opened in August of 2013. This is in the most economically disadvantaged area of our community. It was an old school built in 1891. It had been abandoned for 12 years and had squatters and all kinds of problems in it, and they'd taken sledgehammers to the walls looking for copper, but it had good bones. And we were not only able to renovate it, we put the bell tower back on it. Wouldn't support the weight of a bell, but we put a faux bell so that you have the chimes. Because back in the day, that school bell called people to community, and we wanted Parkland Scholar House to be that kind of place. It has an academic services center as well, and an exercise room and some other stuff. But it was also the first site of our family cafe. That's a weekly meal that is offered not just for the people that live with us, but for the people who are waiting to live with us, for senior citizens, for neighbors, to help create a sense of community that is beyond the walls of Family Scholar House. We now have that on every campus. And Riverport Scholar House. So in all those first 4 examples, we moved into neighborhoods, and generally they liked us pretty well. This time we built our whole neighborhood. This is our part of it, Riverport Scholar House, but it is part of Riverport Landings. 412 apartments, 108 apartments for senior citizens, 240 for low-income families. Our part, which is 32 single-parent families and then 32 foster alumni, a park, and then commercial across the front. It's on like 36 acres. It is a whole neighborhood in and of itself. And we serve everybody that lives there, not just the people that are in our program, with everything from like tax preparation to family cafe, senior commodity boxes, all of that. The senior citizens make wonderful surrogate grandparents for our kids and great mentors for our adults. So along the way, people started hearing about us, and we didn't think we were doing anything all that special, but they wanted to replicate some of what we were doing, and so we developed an affiliate program. Our first affiliate is in Covington, Kentucky. They opened in December of 2016. They have apartments for 48 families, and they also have a historic community theater in the first African American school in northern Kentucky. So the benefits to us of affordable housing was the change of the model, but also the ability to house so many more families and not have to raise money for their rent. It also created a campus environment and gave us an opportunity to have more safety. Alicia, she's a wonderful example of someone who came to us hoping to be a med tech, and she's now in her 3rd year of medical school. That precious little girl, Trinity, is just finishing the 2nd grade. So from 4 in 2005 to almost 4,000 last year, through a full continuum of care, pre-res, res, post-program support. Over 5,000 children last year. Now that wouldn't be possible with a small staff of 20 if we didn't also have 2,000 volunteers. So they are very much a part of our program. 791 families are receiving services in the pre-residential program while they wait for the opportunity to live with us. And degrees earned, 445. We're very proud of the exit to stable housing. The exit to stable employment would be higher, except so many go on to graduate school, and they are often not working full-time. We have 53 new homeowners and then 2 additional that are children from our program who have bought home. Paying it forward. You're going to hear from Maria tomorrow. She's going to answer questions with me in a few minutes. But she's a wonderful example of someone who came into the program and didn't just benefit for herself and her children, but she's also looked at how she could help others. She's very involved in the community and also now in law school, and we're very blessed to have her come with us on so many speaking engagements. And that's that. Thank you very much. Oh. Last thing. On our website, you'll find our annual report and our most recent magazine. That's the easiest way to get them, and you don't have to carry paper around. I would just encourage you to look there if you want more information.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, so we are now going to open it up for questions, and we are going to invite Catherine and Jade up, as well as Kathy and Maria, to come up here to answer some questions. Again, we're going to be using the 2 microphones. I see 1, but we're going to be asking folks to go line up if you have some questions. I think that's the easiest way to go around. I see they have the microphone here. Yeah, that goes. All right, so if folks want to go ahead and line up for questions, I'm going to pass the mic over here, and we will let you know when we have time for a couple more questions. Oh, and if you have a question for a specific program, please ask, and if not, we can make sure that y'all pass it around. So, okay, right here.
Yeah, I ask for money every day, pretty much all day long. Our budget to provide all of the programming that we provide is $2.1 million this year. That is separate from housing. And we do not receive any federal or state dollars for program operations. And yet, we bring in more money than we need every year because this is a really easy, I mean, I hate to say that, but it's a really easy dollar to raise. There's a lot of enthusiasm around helping people get out of poverty so that they won't be in it again. Events help, but those volunteers, those business partnerships, they help as well because they're, you don't have to raise money to buy bricks if somebody gives you the bricks, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can leverage this support to create advocates.
Good afternoon. Is it on now? Good afternoon. Eric Marsh, Focus on Fathers. My question is, you did mention affiliates, but for both programs, in what ways are you seeking partnerships or relationships in other states to kind of expand both of your models. Are you looking outside the state that you're currently in, and what does the scope of that look like?
I'll handle that and then pass it along. Yes. So while I'm here, a group from Oregon is visiting Family Scholar House. North Carolina State and a group from Raleigh were here a couple weeks ago. So there's a lot of interest. We're letting their interests drive that relationship because this is something you have to really want. And so we want to make sure that they understand, you know, the program model and what they're getting into and what problems they're trying to solve, because this isn't the answer to everything. But we are seeing a great deal of interest across the country.
And I'll just mention, too, that I think in terms of a higher education institution, trying to replicate this type of program for single parents, fathers, mothers. I think, you know, we have some schools in Pennsylvania already that are doing some of that work. I know at Wilson College, for example. But I do think that, and our hope would be that with the state's interest now and with the governor's proposal, that there'll be more of that replication throughout the state, and then the increase of accessibility, particularly with higher education institutions, being able to offer that opportunity to more single parent families. So wherever we can do to share what we've been doing and then replicate that, we would certainly be happy to collaborate with. So yeah, we encourage it across the board.
Thank you.
Question here. Good afternoon. Very inspiring. Congratulations to all of you. So I'm Shelley Grimm. I'm from Gateway Health Plan. And my question is, what kind of support do you offer your graduates from transitioning from school and, you know, all of the great wraparound supports that you give to being able to live independently? Thank you.
So I'll start and then pass it along. So within 90 days of graduating and exiting our program, 70% are immediately off of all government assistance, with the exception that we encourage them to maintain a minor relationship with Section 8, because even if they're only getting $5 a month, they're eligible for Section 8 home ownership, which is very handy. We have a career coach, so we're working with them as early as their junior year in the preparation for them to exit. 60% go into healthcare, and we could not possibly have enough nurses in our community, so they're easily absorbed. Most have a job before they ever graduate. But above and beyond that, they become part of our alumni association, and they stay involved. It's sort of that we became family for them. And so they continue to, when they have good news they want to share, they call us. When something, you know, challenging happens, they come back to us. And so we get to be a part of their lives for all of their lives.
And I'll just second that with, in terms of career readiness and preparation, really for our students, it's that last year that's absolutely critical. And we're doing everything from making sure that our women have proper resumes, to etiquette down, to interviewing skill sets. We utilize heavily our career services at our university. And then we'll certainly do everything we can to help with the larger transition too. So it's everything from making sure that our families have furniture to start that first apartment, to some of the essentials they might need, and then also then keeping connected with our university and with our alumni network too. So again, it's not just a departure and good luck with your life. It's more of, we're always going to have that connection, and we want to maintain that because it's part of their identity, but also too because we want to make sure that that transition is smooth also for the child. And I think for many of our children, there's a whole process. We actually have a ceremony that we do at the end of our 4-year trajectory with our program. Our women identify themselves, when Jade mentioned Mulier Fortis, that really means valiant women. And so really the identity and the collective of our group and our women, I think, is something that we try to foster, and that our children really seem to adopt as well. So, you know, the idea is that someday we may even see them again as students in the future.
Hi, my name's Adamina Tankersley. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm a parent support specialist, which basically means I'm a peer. I have a child with a mental health or behavioral health challenge. Now, I heard about Family Scholar House, that they have trauma-informed support. They also have, you know, the sensory areas. What are the thoughts on the other institute, the Women with Children? What are your thoughts on your trauma-informed therapy and children, families that do have children with special needs? Severe special needs as autism or any other ones, how do you support those families, and what are your thoughts on integrating that into your care? And what are your thoughts on expanding if a family has more than 3 children, because that's a high amount of people as well?
Okay, couple questions there. How much time do we have? No, I really would say the first component to what you're talking about, I think we're starting to demonstrate that now, which is when we have children, we have families that are coming from, really, by the way, we accept families from across the United States, not just Pennsylvania. And so we do have children that will come to us with a slew of needs, some of which have not even been treated or diagnosed before. We're going to make sure that all of those services, and that's where the case management piece comes into play, are connected to that family. And so whether it's wraparound services, if we're looking at support even for IEPs with the school districts, we're going to make sure that spectrum children that are diagnosed on the spectrum, we accommodate all of those needs. And I think we've made some extraordinary steps in making sure that we can do that, not just for the mom, but for the child. And it's something we didn't mention before. Sometimes it's also, there's a lot of toxic stress in a lot of these circumstances, and so we want to pay attention to that. And, you know, even for our women, many of them have endured years of abuse or issues that, you know, when they're first getting to us, it's going to be awfully hard to concentrate on your academics and also handle the concerns that you have. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that they also, at the same time, are connected to the services that they're going to need to be effective parents, along with the education that they might need too in order to support their children or their child. To just kind of go over that quickly, we are open to accommodating anything we possibly can for a child. In terms of how many children, we just recently changed our policy. It used to be that we accept moms from across the United States of any age, and we can accept children up to 2 children, and we've changed that in the last 2 years, and I'll tell you why quickly. We are now accepting moms with up to 3 children because I had a mom call me from a homeless shelter in Montana. And we had a long conversation, and she really wanted to be with us. And I asked her finally, how many children do you have? And she said 3. And I'm like, oh boy, I got to go back to the president of the university and see what we can do. And the reality is, this is what happens. Have a conversation with the president. I say, this is the circumstance. I have 3 kids. If we bunk 2 and put the other in a toddler bed, we can do it. Can we do it? He said, yes. So when you ask me how many kids, I just have to keep asking for more space and probably more funding, and the more we can do, the better, and certainly the more across the state too. So that's where we're optimistic about that future funding.
Questions?
Deb, that way.
Hi, Erica Malberger from Central Pennsylvania. Question for Misericordia, and I just need some clarification. So you said 0 EFC. I'm not in education, so I don't know what that means, which said no family contribution, but then you said people are responsible for tuition. So can you clarify that?
Right. So the 0 EFC is when a person is applying for, say, for example, financial aid, and what is their status in terms of any kind of contribution from anyone extraneous to themselves that can support their education. So if they had parents that, for example, would be helping them. In our case, our women are first-generation college students that don't have that support, so they're coming in with that 0 EFC. So it becomes the threshold, and that is used to establish what kind of financial aid package they would be receiving. So upon that review, that's basically what we're referring to that. Our women, just so you know, it's a confluence of different funding streams too. So some of them will obviously take out some student loans to cover some cost of tuition, but they'll also receive Pell Grants as well as numerous scholarships, including our Women with Children program has its own set of scholarships that are also placed and applied to all of the women who are in our program.
So, because I was thinking they were going tuition free, but they're not technically. They're taking out loans or getting other grants.
Right. We take the housing burden. So it's housing's free, books are free, and then all the other services that we provide as a program are.
Okay. And then another question. For some of your support services, like where you do the $500 for car things, you know, breakdown, things like that, how are those things funded, like all your support services? Or do you fund them through your program, or are they referred to other agencies in the community?
No, so that's a great question. We're responsible for grant writing for this program. So I do a lot of grant writing annually in order to fund all of those endeavors. And so all of what we provide in terms of emergency funding, including the car repair and the AAA services, is all grant funded. So yeah. We also do a lot of fundraisers.
Hi, John Moser from Berks County. Misericordia, you indicated in there's eligibility of background checks.
Yes.
What would eliminate someone from coming into the program?
So we have Pennsylvania child abuse clearance. Obviously, if that were to come back flagged, then that would preclude the person from being in our program. But in terms of the criminal background check, this is our policy is that we need to take a closer look at that. And sometimes we have circumstances, and I'll bring up one as a good example. That's case by case. And frankly, I started my career working in the criminal justice system in a state correctional institution. So the messaging from the inmates at that time was, do your best to prevent young people from ending up where we are now. And I thought to myself, all right, well, let's see what we can do. The truth of the matter is, I think that sometimes poverty puts people in pretty precarious circumstances. They make a choice, oftentimes at a young age, where they're not really thinking about the ramifications of what's going to happen to them, and they may have had an incident. Oftentimes, we have moms who've had maybe an incident where they're going to be red flagged on something because they shoplifted. I'm just being frank. And you see what they shoplifted, and it's something for their child. And it was diapers, Do I think that person shouldn't be considered for our program 10 years later because they want to get their education? No, I think that we need to look at that. And so I do think it's important that we look at these things case by case. We certainly have these thresholds, and our expectation, though, is that once you're with us, we have a home contract, we have a civility code, we have a lot of rules in our program. And so in order to be a member of the Women with Children program, you're expected to adhere to those expectations. And so if we do make some exceptions like that, again, case by case, we're also going to apply all of the structure that we have in our program in order to reinforce that point.
We have a question here.
So I do have a question for Maria and for Jade. Congratulations to both of you. You've done wonderful work. You're outstanding. My question is about scholarships. It is not inexpensive to go to the schools that you've gone to, and with FAFSA and getting federal, perhaps state grants. But what kinds of scholarships did you find were available to you, and how did you find them? I have a hard time, getting my students to kind of do that. Some have gone on to college for free because they've figured out how to do that. How did you do that?
Well, it wasn't all free. However, when I started in the program, I worked real closely with my academic coach. So the academic coaches, they basically, even now, Brian is an academic coach right now in graduate program. So Brian is working with me now to make sure that I have all the scholarships available for graduate school to finish up my law degree so that I won't be in such a deficit after completing. So pretty much it was through our academic coach. They sit down, they find out exactly what degree you're going into, different things like the left-handed scholarship, different things you would not even think of. But those type of scholarships, we took advantage of those, and they basically have a whole spreadsheet of them, and you find which ones fit you best. Not only did they help me find them, but I wrote my statements. He went over them and went through about 3 hands, and then it was submitted. And so a few of them were accepted.
We do have a few internal scholarships at Family Scholar House, and also community scholarships that give priority to Family Scholar House participants. And that helps out. That's not going to cover all 279 people living with me, but it is going to help some of those most in need.
So like I mentioned earlier, I went into the program my senior year, so I also grew up in foster care. So a lot of my scholarship and financial aid was backed up through foster care. But my high school, we had a spreadsheet of all different scholarships, and you kind of see what you fit in, whether it's academic or sports related. I took the initiative to apply for everything. Even if I didn't think, maybe I qualified, I applied for it. So honestly, I received a lot of scholarships just for putting in the effort and applying for the scholarship. And I kind of had all of that set up through my years at Misericordia. So when I did go into the program, I was kind of already set up with my financial aid package and my scholarships.
You're welcome. Thank you. We have a question back here.
It's me again. Here's my other question. Say you come across a mom that already tried school, and for whatever reason, she wasn't able to finish, and she has money that she owes. How do you work with that situation? They can't pay what they owe. They can't get a scholarship. How do you work with them to work that situation out, or have you come across that?
I would just mention, well, there are a couple of things, and again, a good question. more often than not, what we'll do is we'll help and provide guidance to that student through our admissions office and our financial aid office to help that student rectify if there's some sort of bill in another school. We'll help them transition with their transcripts. We'll make sure that they're getting that advice that they might need. We've had some extraordinary circumstances where we'll have a mom who may have something, it's not like a very large bill, but something that is outstanding. There have been times where we've actually appealed to that particular school and said, look, this is the bigger picture. Are you willing to work with us? Can we do something, make an arrangement? And they'll work with us and they'll work with that student. But oftentimes it does require them to go back to the respective school and communicate that. And again, I think for us that's also a measure of their persistence and their desire to really want to get their degree. So it doesn't happen very often, but occasionally we do have to take matters into our hands in terms of communicating to other schools.
We see it a lot. We see it a whole lot. And often they may have gone to a school that's not accredited. And they may owe $30,000 and not have one single credit that will transfer. And we do have some resources to support that. But the other thing we have is a really good relationship with all of our colleges and universities, so that if one payment is made and a payment plan is established, they can then move forward. And when they know that, it really helps when they know that they have the support of Family Scholar House and they know that they're going to be able to move forward, then they're much more likely to accept a small payment and set up a payment plan so that that student can move forward. Because when that student gets an education, the whole community benefits, even that school benefits.
Hi, this is Christina Duncan, Executive Director at Milagro House. Hi. Kathy, this is specifically for you. You mentioned something called pre-residential programming, and we often talk about in-the-moment programming and then post-programming. I'm really interested to hear what that is, the benefit, how you use it, just a little bit more about that.
Okay, so I'm going to do this as succinctly as I can because there's benefits to the participants and there's benefits to the program. The pre-residential program, when people call in and do an intake or come in and do an intake and are then, they come to orientation. And they get all the information about the program and they then make a decision as to whether or not they would want to be in the program. Once they've made that decision, they do their FAFSA and they update their resume and then they are in the pre-residential program. They can then receive every service we offer with the exception of housing and childcare. Please know that I think those are the two biggest things that most families need, but that's what we have a short supply of. Because they are then in the pre-residential program, they have an academic coach on our staff. They have a family advocate on our staff. They're coming to Family Cafe. They're getting support and diapers out of the pantry. Their kids are coming to Toddler Book Club with them. They're coming to Mommy and Me cooking classes. And in all of that process, we're feeding their hope. And they are feeling more engaged in a community that is education focused and more like they belong. And when we have a non-traditional weighting program, so those 791, number one isn't the first person who called in. This is based on how many points they have. And for everything they do, they get points. It's a very clear rubric that allows them to self-select. I had a mom say, can you help me get moved up the waiting list? I said, no, but you can do it yourself. The harder they work, the more points they have, and the person with the most points is the next one to move in. And because transportation can be a barrier, the programming is also online. So they can do the programming in 5-minute videos from their phone while they're riding the bus to school or to work. All of that has created an environment, and I think probably Maria can speak better to this, where the motivation level, you know that everybody that's there is there like you're there. They're there because they really want to be, and they're motivated by their kids largely. And so that in and of itself makes that pre-residential program a good fit for us and a good fit for the people that we're serving. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to speak on a pre-residential side. I, of course, was a part of the pre-residential side. The great thing about it is you have so many different workshops that you can go to, and the workshops are actually beneficial, like stress management, all these different workshops that you attend, but you're getting points, but you're also getting knowledge, like financial literacy, all these different things that you go to, the cooking classes while you're pre-resident. So it benefits you. So I moved up on the waiting list because I'm like, I want to learn more about this. I want to learn more about this. So it's not like it's not like you're just going through the program. And I want to speak to after you graduate. The best part about it, she mentioned that that these are like your sisters, and there are guys in our programs that graduate with us, so brothers as well. But the great thing about it is we hold each other accountable. So even after you're done with the program, like all of us are still friends. I have one. I'm working on my law degree, and I have another friend. She's working on her doctorate. So just like we were holding each other accountable in undergrad, we're doing the same thing now. So that goes around. We literally stick together. We're all in like graduate programs. So that was the answer after we graduate.